I'd like to start by just saying a few words, and here we go. Being president of the mikveh in the midst of pandemic was never on my bingo card for 2020. But then again, so many things were not on that card. Right after Purim, when COVID-19 was still new to our vocabulary, I called MES Vice President Naomi Baum and said, what are we going to do about this virus in the mikveh? And thus began an ever-changing process for the Mikveh Emunah Society and the Wallerstein Mikveh. While schools and shuls were forced to close and find new ways to connect, MES made it its mission to find the safest way to stay open so that the women of the community could fulfill a sacred mitzvah. As so little was known about COVID at the start, we tried to develop best practices based on science, halacha, and common sense. We continue to change and update our procedures as our understanding of the virus changed. Not everyone agreed with us, not everyone was happy. My favorite catchphrase from this pandemic, and many people have heard me say it, everyone has their own Shulchan Aruch. Everybody had their own idea what the rules should be during this time. But we had an obligation to protect our staff and our users to the highest standards of our ability. And thank God we have done just that. And truthfully, we've heard from many grateful women in the community who truly appreciate our efforts. And that's what this evening is really all about, feeling joy and laughter, Hoda'ah and Bracha. Being grateful is a central theme of Judaism, especially on Rosh Hashanah, when we take inventory of all the blessings in our lives. When we turn to Hashem and we turn to Hashem and we offer thanks for our abundance, even during the darkest times, gratitude is central to affirming all that we have and all that others do for us. In fact, it is central to a feeling of well-being. When feeling grateful, we are conscious of the manifold blessings in our lives. So I'm grateful that I have the opportunity, on behalf of the Mikveh Emunah Society, to express our hakarat hatov to so many who have helped on our behalf. I'll start with our fabulous rabbinic advisors, Rabbi David Rosenbaum and Rabbi Bram Weinberg. With countless emails, late night Zoom meetings, and phone calls, Rabbis Rosenbaum and Weinberg have been generous with their time, thoughts, understanding, and advice, halachic or otherwise. They understand the important work of MES and have championed our cause. For that and so much more, we are grateful for your continued support, and we are blessed to have you in our community. I can think of no one more dedicated and more caring about the mikveh than our mikveh manager, Chai Chin. Applaud here, everybody. There you go. Everybody's muted, but everybody's applauding. There we go. When COVID hit, Chai jumped right in, as only Chai can. She spent time talking to mikveh managers and others around the country, helped to produce our protocols, helped our staff to understand those protocols, helped to procure masks and wipes, and so much more. But more importantly, she spent tireless hours talking to the women in our community to allay their fears and make them understand that they could use the mikveh safely during a lockdown. When Chai took on the important role of mikveh manager after the untimely passing of our beloved Robin Nyman, Zichrono Livracha, I know Chai was worried about filling Robin's shoes. And I'm sure that running the mikveh during a pandemic didn't help. But I think Robin would have been proud of Chai, as are we, as Chai has more than risen to the occasion as she tackles each task with detail, thoughtfulness, and heart. Thank you, Chai. Naomi Baum is the stalwart backbone of the Mikveh Emunah Society. One of her many responsibilities is to oversee the smooth running of all things in the Wallerstein building, a tremendous undertaking that she does so well. And I am grateful for her calm way, her breadth of knowledge, her spot-on advice, and her commitment to MES. Page. Maybe, upside down. Here we go. Sorry. We extend our kaharat tov to Rana Eisenberg, our facilities manager. I've learned more about filtration systems and bromide than anyone can imagine. Rana takes such excellent care of our building and knows the intricate ins and outs of each of our many complex systems. She is meticulous about her work, and it shows throughout our building. Thank you so much, Rana. Thank you to Wendy Guberman, our volunteer webmaster, who's been keeping our website up to date, sometimes hourly as things have evolved, and I think she's working on it right now, but shh, don't tell. In the pre-COVID days, the mikveh had greeters at our front desk and attendants working in the back, all of whom played important roles in enhancing mikveh experience. Now in this COVID world, we have screeners, schedulers, and attendants. The screeners have spent a tremendous number of hours patiently talking to the women of the community to ensure the well-being of the users and the attendants. The schedulers have worked diligently to find time in our precious limited number of spots per night so that anyone who needed the mikveh could use it. So we extend our thanks to Chani Feldman, Shlomit Ettinger, Sheila Frankel, Lori Cohen, Judy Marwick, and Debbie Rudman. And our attendants, unsung heroes in our community, who put themselves on the front line every night with charm, grace, and humility. Their quiet acts of kindness bring comfort and calm at a time when it's anything but. We ask a lot of our attendants, and they never fail to deliver. We extend sincere hakarat hatov to Sarah Dahlman, Yocheved Meizel, Hannah Wiggins, Chai Chin, Esty Katz, Esty Silver, who we're sad to see leave us, Sharon Shimoff, Rachel Burnham, Fran Broder, and Audrey Siegel. In Brachot 58a, Ben Zoma asks, how much effort did Adam, the first man, exert before he found bread to eat? He plowed, he sowed, reaped, sheaved, threshed, winnowed, separated the grain from the chaff, ground the grain into flour, sifted, kneaded, baked, and only after he ate. Yet I, Ben Zoma remarked, I wake up and find all of these prepared for me. As Ben Zoma's statement reminds us, we all depend on many other people's efforts to live our daily lives, and others certainly depend on us in turn. But it is easy in the hustle bustle of life to lose sight of the fundamental reality. Gratitude is about increasing our awareness of other people's contributions and expressing that awareness in tangible ways. So on behalf of the Mikveh Emunah Society, I'll end by expressing our gratitude to each of you, our many supporters. We are blessed that you care. Without you, we have no mikveh, and without a mikveh, we couldn't live in this wonderful community that we enjoy so much. Thank you so much. And at this time, thank you. At this time, I'd like to call on Yael Cortell, who's going to give, who is the General Studies Principal of the Yeshiva of Greater Washington, who is going to give us, share with us a few words of Torah. Yael?
Thank you so much, Lori. And I just want to begin by echoing your expressions of gratitude to the leaders of the mikvah, to the mikvah attendants, and to really all of the leaders of our community for their remarkable work and guidance and support, always and in particular in the last 6 months. When Caroline asked me to share some words tonight, my mind immediately went to a story that I heard told 20 years ago by Rav Yehuda Kuperman Zatzal, founder and menahel of Michlala Yerushalayim Lebanot. And he told us that during the time of communist Russia, that Michlala would sponsor a few students' attendance at Michlala each year from Russia. They would pay for their tuition, for their room and board in order to provide them with the chinuch that they otherwise would not have access to. And Rav Kuperman himself would travel each year to Russia in order to conduct the interviews, which was obviously a very serious undertaking. But he wanted to ensure that they accepted students who were really deeply committed to what the school had to offer. And there was one year that he went and he interviewed a young woman and afterwards met with her parents. And this was a family who were shomer mitzvos, even in such difficult circumstances. And when he spoke with her parents, he asked them about how they managed to keep the mitzvos in Russia at that time. He asked them about how they managed to keep kashrus and how they managed to keep Shabbos. And then he said to them, and what about Taharas HaMishpacha? Do you have a mikvah? And the wife turned to him and she said, we don't have a mikvah. We use the river. And he said to her, but what do you do in the winter? The Russian winter, it's so cold. And she looked at him with a straight face and she said, we bring an axe. My grandmother once told me that when she was a young mother in Brookline, Massachusetts, the mikveh was outside the community. The neighborhoods had changed over time and the area where the mikveh stood was dangerous. So the women of the community developed a buddy system and always traveled to the mikveh in pairs to ensure a safe return home. What I've come to understand since I heard the first story is that Mesiras Nefesh for mitzvos comes in different forms. sometimes extraordinary and spectacular, and at other times understated. But the emunah and the loyalty to mitzvos that drives these choices remains the same. We are zoche to live in a time when a visit to a mikvah is both safe and extremely comfortable, and to enjoy the benefits of a thriving community. But these last 6 months, some of the extra comforts that we associated with certain mitzvos have been put on hold. Our trips to the mikvah have been reduced to a masked 15-minute visit. Shabbos minyanim have been shortened too, and we no longer have the opportunity to linger in the Kiddush room and to socialize with our neighbors. And school is a bumpier, less comfortable experience than we and our children are used to. And I think in a way, it is an opportunity to demonstrate our own form of Mesiras Nefesh, not to endure danger or discomfort, but to give up some of the extra comforts that we've become accustomed to show ourselves and HaKadosh Baruch Hu that we remain committed regardless of circumstance, and an opportunity too to focus on what's most essential and to recommit ourselves to the mitzvah itself, to the tefillah, and to our children's chinuch. I believe this is a great zechus that we carry into the Yamim Norayim as individuals and as a community. May we be zoche to a year of simchas hamitzvah, of good health and continued growth in our avodas Hashem. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Al, for those inspiring words. According to the Mayo Clinic, exercise, sleep, and diet are key for your mental and emotional health. But there's a lesser known way you can boost your health. In these uncertain times, laughing yourself silly may just be the smart thing to do. So that's what we're trying to do tonight. The mikveh is a very serious undertaking, no doubt about it. But sometimes we all just need a laugh. So it is my pleasure to introduce Ellie Lebowitz. Ellie started doing stand-up comedy while a student at YU. Since then, he has performed at Jewish events all over the country and did a whole tour of shows in Israel over Pesach 2019. And I can add, I'm a very good friend of his mother-in-law, so I know he's going to have to behave tonight. Before Ellie starts, know that he has asked me, he's requested that we unmute a few people, and we've paid a few people to laugh just in case. So we will be unmuting a few pre-assigned people so that Ellie's not talking to, I don't know, an empty room or something. So it is my pleasure to introduce Ellie Lebowitz.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Lori. Thanks everyone for having me. This doing comedy over Zoom is one of the toughest things that you can do. It's just very, very difficult. It's hard because there's no real feedback. There's no real response. And the only time you get a response if someone is upset with you and they email you afterwards. And I told my rabbi, he's like, now you know how I feel. So that's why we asked for a few people to be unmuted, but if maybe we should pick another 5. No, I'm kidding. Also, Lori said in her thing, she said, not everyone agreed and not everyone was happy. If that was a mission statement for the Jewish people, that might be the best line for the Jewish people. Not everyone agreed and not everyone was happy. We're living in a weird time. I'm not going to use the word unprecedented because everyone has said that now. Everyone has said we're living in unprecedented times. I think, it's weird times when my shul emailed me not to come. I was like, I was actually going to come this time. No, we don't. It felt like a relative who was just going to guilt me and be like, you know what, we don't need you. We're just going to close the shul. Okay, we don't need. And it's so strange. Like, I'm in New York, and places have started opening up a little bit, and shul has started opening up. The first minyan I went to, I was like, oh wow, this is so crazy. It's the first minyan I've been to since Hanukkah. Everyone's like, wasn't it around Purim that thing's called? Yeah, it's the first minyan since Hanukkah. It's so weird. It's so crazy. And I perform for a lot of Jewish organizations, and they try to, coax you into, especially everybody's having like kind of hard times, and they say, can you do this for us? They try to incentivize you, but, with wording, and they got to be really careful with the way they say it, because they'll be like, it would be great exposure for you. And I'm like, ooh, bad choice of words. No. Your name will go, it'll go viral. You'll spread everywhere. I'm like, oof, I'm out. And it's really hard. I don't know, could the symptoms of coronavirus be any more vague? Honestly, it's like, anxiety, trouble breathing, chills, fever, baldness. I'm pretty sure I've had it for years. And I don't know if I had the nasal swab. I got tested, and they did both nostrils because the first one wasn't painful enough. And it's so, they stick this, I'm pretty sure that's how they mummified people in Egypt. They stuck it up there, and it was I lost some memories. It's a good thing I have pictures of my son, because it was really very tough experience. But this whole experience has kind of changed everything in our culture. The way I'll watch a movie, and if it's a horror movie, instead of yelling out at the screen, "Don't go in there," now I'm yelling, "Don't touch the elevator button." Like, it's so. And just our day-to-day life has also changed. Even before this, if I didn't want to cook dinner and I ordered from a restaurant, like, I was just so lazy. But now I'm a hero for supporting a restaurant. Like, it's amazing. And also, you see somebody, when I would see somebody on Shabbos beforehand, if somebody walked by you and they didn't say anything, you're like, oh, what a jerk, the guy didn't say good Shabbos to me. But now if somebody walks by you and doesn't say anything, you're like, oh, so considerate, he doesn't want to breathe on me. And I think it's a little tricky that, the guidelines about the masks keep changing. At the beginning, they told everyone only like essential workers should wear it. You don't really need to. And then one day they're like, everyone should wear masks if they can. And it's kind of strange how they like kind of on a dime like change the rules completely. It's like my really frum yeshiva day school growing up was like, don't talk to girls. And then one day they're like, why aren't you married yet? And you're like, what? Do that. So it's I have two young kids, and it's really been a tough thing. Anybody with kids is extra hard in its own way. I think if 8 months ago I bet we all said, I just want to spend more time with my family. And God's like, are you sure? Be careful what you wish for. Or did anyone say, I just want to limit some of my kids' screen time? We're like, okay, good luck. And honestly, like, I have a 2.5-year-old son, and actually my wife had a baby about a month ago. You could write my stuff later. Thank you. But basically, it's when you have a toddler, parenting is very difficult to begin with. Because my style of parenting is pretty much, on my phone while my kid plays, and then I hear a noise, and I do a vague, careful, then I go back to my phone. Was that not everyone's parenting experience the last 6 months? But it's this whole thing is so we missed, we missed so many moments in shul that happened. I was thinking, Shavuos was like the holiday we had before most recently. And I was thinking, 40 is such a holy number in Judaism. Moshe was on Har Sinai for 40 days. Sorry, it just felt like 40 years because of quarantine. But he was on Har Sinai for 40 days. The Jews were in the desert for 40 years. A free Zoom session shuts off after 40 minutes. It's a really important number in Judaism. People are like, you should splurge for the pro account. I actually did a bunch of these shows in March and April, right at the beginning when this whole thing happened. I did it for schools and a lot of staff. And during my show, one of the teachers was making PPE masks during the show. And I have to tell you, I have never felt less essential in my entire life. Like, there was like healthcare workers, teachers, and guys who make davening jokes. Like, it's really, I have to give it up for teachers, by the way. Teachers, they did it in, round of applause. I won't be able to hear it, but yeah, for teachers and for being able to just on a dime, in March, be like, hey, by the way, you know this thing that you do in person, you're going to do that completely online. And they're like, okay. Like, I give so much credit to teachers because the teachers I had growing up would not have been able to figure out Zoom because they couldn't even figure out the video cart with the TV on it. You know what I mean? Like, you knew it was only going to be a 45-minute video, but it was going to take them 2 hours to learn how to use it with the HDMI and the cord. I also give credit to students. You know, students had it hard. Last 3 months of school, they kind of just either didn't really have something or they had something over Zoom. And I bet, you know, some kids for sure lost some, you know, gap in their knowledge. You know, there's going to be a gap in their education that may not be filled. And one day they're going to be at a job and somebody's going to say, you know, for just a fraction of the cost, we could save a lot of money. And one guy's going to raise his hand and be like, wait, what's a fraction? So, you know, but also, you know, we have these terms, social distancing. The first time I heard that term, I was like, social distancing. If you were like me and you went to, you know, non-co-ed school growing up, you're like, I totally know how to do that. I'm great at it. I've been amazing. Also, you know, I feel like the world has adopted the term stay safe. It's like the world's good Shabbos. You know, everyone just ends stay safe. That was a new joke. I tried it on Twitter. It's fine. But anyways, I am encouraged that you have decided to have a comedy night. You know, I know everything is very serious right now, and I think it's really everybody kind of does need a laugh. I do a lot of, you know, Lori read my bio, which at this point kind of just reads like a depressing eulogy almost of just like, well, he performs all over the world at Pesach programs and other things that don't happen. So it's, you know, but I do perform at a lot of Jewish events, and Jews are very tough to make laugh. Well, you see half the people on the screen. You know, if everyone's just like Zoom is especially hard because half the time people's cameras aren't set up, so you just see people's nostrils, and they're just and then you hear the spouse be like, has the comedy started? And it's like, I haven't heard him say anything funny yet. And, but Jews are especially tough to make laugh because Jews like something more than laughing, and that's correcting people. And many of you didn't laugh at that because you're thinking, I don't know if he's right about that. So thank you for proving my point even further. And so I do comedy for a lot of Jewish events, and it was a nice introduction you gave me. Sometimes when I perform at shul events, I don't always get, you know, the easiest introduction. I sometimes have to follow Tehillim, and that's really tough. Not the best intro. I performed at an event about 5 years ago, actually in August of 2015. It was right after the Iran deal passed, so everyone was really on edge, kind of like right now. And the rabbi who introduced me, he had this whole speech, and he finished his speech by saying, I am so scared for the state of the world. I am so terrified for the Jewish people. I know Mashiach's coming, but I'm frightened. Please welcome the comedian, Ellie Lebowitz. And be like, hey, who's scared? So, you know, back in the day when we actually did things, I would do, you know, events, you know, Motzi Shabbos, you know, at different communities. So I'd go for Shabbos, and then there would be like, you know, advertising, you know, the whole Shabbos, and then Saturday night would be, Motzi Shabbos would be the big thing. So Friday night, though, I would go to people's houses for meals, and some people at the meal didn't know I was the comedian. So you'd hear like barely honest feedback where people would be like, are you going to this stupid comedy thing? And I'd be like, I don't know. Like, he won the YU thing. He doesn't have any real credits. Come on. Like, no, so I'm very encouraged that you have, you know, you did have me for a comedy night, because I will contact shuls asking if they want to have a comedy night, and they'll always tell me horror stories of previous comedy nights that went terribly wrong. They'll be like, well, we had a comedian in 1985, and he swore the whole time, and it was the worst Tisha B'Av event we ever had. And and I do very clean material, because like, look at me, you know, I know this is the audience, like, also because when I go to a comedy club, comedians are usually very much more inappropriate, you know, they get up on stage and be like, you know, when you're doing drugs in Vegas, and I'll be like, no, or they're not even stuff like, as an Orthodox Jew, I just can't connect. To be like, you know how when you're at a McDonald's, I'm like, let me stop you right there. Like, I need a comedian who'll say something I can relate to. I need a comedian who'll get up on stage and be like, you know how when you're peeing and you sneeze and your yarmulke falls in the toilet? Be like, yes, totally do. That's when a bunch of people are going to stand up. that joke is missing the live experience because all the women would turn to the men and are like, does that really happen to you? And if you didn't do that just now, you're lying. And all the men have to lie and say, no, it does not happen. I mentioned Shavuos. Shavuos, we have this ambition, I think. Shavuos we didn't have in person. So, you have that part of the thing about people stay on all night on Shavuos is the social pressure to because everyone else is doing it. So this year we didn't really have that. And I really give a lot of people credit for having the ambition that, like, every year they're like, I'm going to learn the entire Torah tonight. And then you see that same person, they're like, Bereshit bara, and then 5 minutes later, and then fall asleep. It's like when you go on a plane, remember planes? When you go on a plane, what do? You bring 3 books with you. Why? Because suddenly you're gonna love reading. You're like, I'm gonna write a novel while I'm up here. And then 5 minutes in, you're like, hey, Pitch Perfect 3 is on. I'm gonna watch that. No, but I am very proud to be Jewish. I am very proud to be Jewish. People ask me if I wear a yarmulke, on stage in real life. And I was like, yeah, of course. Because if I did this, he would be like, oh, obviously he's Catholic. I'm like, no, I'm well aware how Jewish I am. Like, and I live in New York. It's a pretty accepting city, but somebody came up to me and they said, "Keep it moving, yarmulke," which I guess is the most neutral anti-Semitic comment. What do you do with it? You too, crucifix. I don't really have a response for this. Another guy asked me once when the bus was coming, and I was like, I don't know. He's like, I get it. You're Jewish, so you think you're better than me. And I was like, yeah, but not for that reason. I was walking. Actually, several months ago, I was driving with a friend of mine, and he gave me a ride, and he cut off about 20 cars as he merged into a lane, and he said, "Take your yarmulke off for this." And I said, "You're driving a Honda Odyssey, okay? You might as well have a mezuzah on the door. I mean, this is practically like, come on." No, but like I said, I'm very proud of my Judaism, but there are times you want to downplay it. Like I fly a lot. Well, not anymore, but I used to. So I fly in sukkahs with my lulav and esrog, and that's a really humbling experience. You got to walk through, airport security holding this giant thing, and you're like, is anyone going to know I'm Jewish? All right, great. No one will know now. You have to walk through security, and the woman in American Airlines, she says to me, "What is that?" And I'm like, "It's like a religious tree. I don't know." And she says, "Do you plant it?" And I'm like, "No, you idiot. You shake it. Duh." And non-Jews have something like that probably when they want to downplay their religiosity. Catholics have something called Ash Wednesday, where 40 days before Easter, the frum Catholics, they put ashes on their forehead. So whenever I see somebody with ashes on their forehead, I can't help but think to myself, I got to start cleaning for Pesach. That is for the reminder. I know that was a little triggering for some of you, Pesach, because I think half of people's plans for Pesach is to kick their kids out of the house, and they're like, "What do we do this year? What are we supposed to do?" And I just also feel like with a lot of holidays that we had, and with Extra Minhagim, I feel like this year we could have gotten a little bit of either a heter or something like eased up a little bit. Like during the 9 days this year, the 9 days was like, you're supposed to be extra sad during the 9 days. I was like, can we just like skip kind of that part of the 9 days? Like it's been 2020. Can we just, it's a little overkill. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Do we really need a 9 days in this year? It's kind of like how Erev Pesach, for some reason I have to hide 10 pieces of bread around my house, even though I know that there's 100 Cheerios in my couch right now. Like I that doesn't seem fair. I mentioned, now we have the Chagim coming up, and a lot of them are on weekends this year, but I was actually thinking, so that's a lot easier for people that have to, I don't know if people are back in the office, but, taking off work is really hard when all the Chagim come on weekdays. But, I realized that the best time to start a new job has to be after Shavuos, because you have 3 months of being normal. 3 months, you're finishing up an interview and they're just like, hey, anything else I should know about you? And you're like, nope. But in your head, you're like, in September, I'm insane. And they're missing a lot of, like Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, at least I would call name brand holidays. people have heard of those. But after, Sukkot and then, Shmini Atzeres, Simchas Torah, it gets a little tenuous. So you have to it's so awkward to go up to your manager, even for Sukkot, and you're just like, so I'm going to need 2 days off this week. Okay, and then they're like, that's fine. You'll just make up the time the week after. I'm going to need another 2 days next week also. Why? What's this holiday called? Happiness of the Torah. That just sounds made up. But don't worry. There's no holidays for 3 months, or 6 months actually, but I will need to leave by 2 on Fridays. And, and let's be honest, is there anything worse, with Yom Noraim coming up, is there anything worse than when somebody comes up to you who's in Jewish after Yom Kippur and they say to you, I hope you had a nice holiday? Do you know what I was doing yesterday? I'm cold, I'm hungry, I'm a bad person. All together now. But I do really try to have an inspirational Yom Kippur davening. I really, really try. But it's really hard because, you're like me, you're counting the pages, dividing by 2. Thank God. Oh my gosh. It may taste amazing to break your fast, but it is nothing like realizing a 100-page Musaf is only really 50 pages. It is unbelievable. Come on, you get mad at the Chazi when you read something that's not bolded. You're like, dude, what are you doing? We could have been 8 pages further by now. And it says some shuls say these paragraphs. You're like, please don't be some shuls, please. If I was ever running for office, my campaign slogan would be most congregations omit this, okay? And if you don't get that joke, by the way, and you still use a beer bomb mopser, you really might not be shouldn't be going outside anymore. But no, honestly, it's really hard, all the Chagim, I realized how much I miss shul. This whole experience has, and also shul's gotten, gabbais have it really hard in shul, because before it was like gabbais would be like, hey, you want to get, shlishi, or you want to daven musaf. Now some shuls, the one person is doing everything. So it's like, hey, do you want to do hagba, glila, lane, also build the entire tent also and everything? It's like, no, I don't know if you could tell, by the way, some people have more of a hagba build. I have more of a glila build. You can't tell I'm sitting down, but Anim Zmiro's build, maybe. I don't know. If I was standing, you would get it. But I realized how much I miss shul. I gotta be honest, shul boredom is a real thing. Whether or not we want to admit it, we have a lot of shul coming up. I miss shul boredom. You're saying shul boredom is inevitably real. If there's a piece of paper in front of you in shul, you will read it. It doesn't matter what it is. Newsletters, announcements, svarim. I think English teachers should put Moby Dick and War and Peace in front of people and see it. It's kind of it's a little bit like when you go to the bathroom without your phone, you start reading the Febreze in the soft soap bottle. You're like, hey, soft soap had a pretty good year. Also, apparently there's a Kiddush next week. But but even the people, I didn't realize how I missed the people who annoyed me in shul. The annoying Yal V'Yavo reminder, the person whose job it is to rush through Shemona Esrei just to beat everyone to Yal V'Yavo. Yal V'Yavo, ha ha, I beat you all. And you turn your nose Shemona Esrei. And you're like, shut up. And then, of course, you forget Yal V'Yavo anyway. But Kiddush Levana reminder guy is also tough. You're like, who wants to go see a movie, get some pizza? And Kiddush Levana, you're like, man, always gets me. Or David Hashem Ori, oh, come on. That always gets you. But also, that Kiddush Levana after Yom Kippur, I have to say, very, very tough. Because Yom Kippur, like I said, I try to have a really inspirational Yom Kippur davening, but but it's tough because Yom Kippur, you're like, all right, I'm going to do all the right things. I'm going to have such a better year. And then Yom Kippur ends and they're like, Kiddush Shavan, you're like, well, I lasted as long as I could. And that's the only time you can say, I got to get to my sukkah, which is really, you can only use that one time. You can't be like, hey, Kiddush Shavan, I got to get to my sukkah. It's March. Yeah, I still haven't taken it down. And, but the thing that I miss the most of shul, the moment of shul that I miss most is Birkas HaChodesh. That's when they announce when Rosh Chodesh will be, kind of. They don't announce Rosh Chodesh, they announce the Molad, and nobody really knows what that is. So it's a wonderful moment where you see the Gabbai get up there and be like, the Molad will be Tuesday, 6:30 and 8 Chalakim after 7, Yerushalayim time, and everyone else is just like, hey, when's Rosh Chodesh? When am I not saying Tachnun? Tachnun is the most hated thing in Judaism. You could take Haman's name out of the Megillah, put the word Tachnun, and people would boo twice as hard. Like, it is really, so this whole thing actually, by the way, this whole thing started right around Purim. Purim, things were kind of normal, but like also everyone was a little scared. You know, somebody coughed during the Megillah, everyone booed that guy. Like, it was really like, you know, and we, you know, normally we do. I love, my favorite thing of Purim is shalach manos, like, you know, the food gifts that we give each other. But you know, this year we didn't really do that. We're just like, just give me Purell, toilet paper, and canned goods. That's all we need. We don't need anything else. I love getting shalach manos, but more than getting shalach manos, I like re-gifting shalach manos. Let's be honest. You don't have to be embarrassed because we all do it. Because you only can make so many. You make your 25, your 30, whatever. Some people go overboard and make 100. And then you always get those surprise people who knock on your door and they're like, "Hey, happy Purim." You're like, "Oh shoot, I don't know what you're that good of friends. Hold on." And you know, you do this like panic shuffle behind the door. You're like, "Come on, 2 foods, 2 brachas. What bracha to make a banana? Forget it. Give him some Chex Mix." And one year, I'm gonna write my name in a box of raisins and see whatever comes back to me. And and you know, you try to you have and now that we're all, you know, working from home, you have this one table, right? It is the same table that we've been working at. You work in one corner, your spouse is in the other corner, your kids are like doing Play-Doh and everything. You eat on another section, you know. So like on Purim, we have this one table, right? You have the table of the ready-made ones, the ones that you already got, and then you just have the junk, the stuff you hate, the yellow Laffy Taffies, the black jelly beans. You try to make some sort of mishmash, you know, Frankenstein chant of, you know, re-gifted. You can't make it your theme because being unprepared isn't a theme. So, you know, you open the door, you're all sweaty, you open the door and you're like, Freilich and Purim, and they're like, "Wait, I just gave you these raisins," and that's why on my shalach manos, all right, wishing a happy Purim to you and your family, or whoever you decide to give this to. And you know, but honestly, you know, as hard as the last 6 months have really been, I think, you know, this should hopefully be the hardest thing that we go through. You know, honestly, like, this has been like been very, very crazy, and I still feel like, you know, we do have it, considering like this is 2020 and we can at least get together over technology. You know, the idea of this is still going to be the hardest thing that we're going to go through, and like it's going to pale, like the stories of hashgacha pratis that I've heard from my grandparents and their generation are so much more impressive than what we're going to tell our, you know, the next generations. Like, you know, our grandparents' stories are just amazing. They're just like, you know, and by some miracle, I was able to do it. They didn't check my passport and I was able to escape to America. And our stories are going to be so lame. Our stories are going to be like, and no one else got in the car, even though it was an Uber pool. Anima. Just not gonna. I mentioned the 9 days. I don't know if this still happened, but you know, my favorite thing of the 9 days is that, you know, during the 9 days, you're not supposed to eat meat unless somebody makes a siyum or it's Shabbos. So obviously everyone makes a siyum every night of the 9 days, because some people hate dairy so much they're even willing to learn Torah. And it's subtle musar. So Lori mentioned I did some shows in Israel over Pesach last year. We didn't fly El Al that time because we've flown El Al before. And the time before we went to Israel, I flew El Al, and I forgot what flying El Al was like. You know, there were babies crying, people davening, people smoking. It was like somebody took the subway in New York and was like, let's make this a 12-hour experience. Like, you know, and it's like a kosher restaurant just with bigger bathrooms, you know. And it was, you know, and I was, you know, I was checking my bags and I was reading the signs for the El Al, and it said El Al, it's not an airline, it's Israel. I feel like a more accurate slogan should be El Al, it's not an airline, it's an Egged bus with wings. And you know, and they have these El Al security people, which you know, they seem tough, but they're really nice. But like it's supposed to make you feel like this is going to be a really secure flight. But they ask you these questions, and all it does is just make you feel bad about your Judaism. So they ask you these questions. Do you know what Parsha it is? I mean, that's an unfair question to ask. I don't even know what book we're on right now. Like, what? We stopped at Tetzaveh, I think. I'm not even sure. And it's, or you're like, I didn't know this was gonna be on the final. Or they ask you the other one. They say, and then they say, where do you go to shul? And you're like, well, you don't understand. My shul told me not to come. And you're like, there's a place I go to for kiddush. Like, you're not gonna tell my parents about this, are you? Or they ask you the other one. They say, sometimes they say, who are you visiting in Israel? Where are you visiting? You're like, listen, I did not tell those relatives I was coming. Can we just keep this between us? This is supposed to be a quick trip. I do not have time to bring cereal and Listerine to my cousins in Ramat Beit Shemesh, okay? Or they even ask you, sometimes they say, did anyone ask you to bring anything? Only every person I've ever met in my entire life. A bigger red flag to know if somebody's a terrorist would be, did anyone not ask you to bring something? That's why, last year they had the Bereshit Moonlander, and I was so excited. I know it was an unmanned mission, and I can't wait for the first manned mission to the moon, where people, they're going to have all these Israelis at a press conference, and they're going to say, we're so excited to be the first Israelis to go to the moon. And one person's going to raise their hand and say, do you mind bringing a few things back to the moon with you, just to keep my son in Shiva? It's really, my Hebrew growing up was pretty terrible. I had Hebrew in elementary school. I had Hebrew for twice a week for like half an hour, and that was it. All they taught us were like school supplies. Like it didn't prepare me to learn Hebrew unless I wanted to work in Office Depot in Tel Aviv. They were just like Iparon, pencil, 8, pen, shotgun, matchmaker, and you're like, you know what I'm talking about. Like, and also, at least this was my experience. Like, the Hebrew teachers I had growing up, their qualifications weren't so thorough. They were just like, are you Israeli? Yes. Are you out of your mind? Of course. Great. You're teaching 5th graders. Like, it's just like, can you throw a desk at a kid? You'll get a bonus at the end of the year. And it's like, what? And now people are shocked. Why don't our kids know Hebrew? I was like, I don't know, because they had a drill sergeant yelling at us for half an hour. And it's so crazy. So my year in Israel, I read Harry Potter 1 in Hebrew, which, people said, I went to really from yeshiva, people were like, why are you reading that? I said, I want to learn Hebrew. I'm in their country. They said, why don't you read a Sefer or something? I said, first of all, Sefer is book in Hebrew. You would know that if you knew Hebrew. Also number 2, they haven't made Miss Elsie Sharm into a movie yet, and that joke was for 4 people. But I have to say, I have to give, I know Israel is a really tough thing, because Israel gets a lot of, criticism in the media, and I think it's really unfair, because there are legitimate, real things to criticize Israel about. Just do it accurately and honestly. Like, don't criticize Israel for being an apartheid state, because it's not. Criticize Israel for being this close to curing cancer, but can't figure out how to serve pizza on anything more than a cardboard slab, okay? Don't criticize Israel for, doing ethnic cleansing, doesn't do that. Criticize Israel for being the startup nation, but still hasn't made it past the squeegee, okay? Like, don't criticize Israel for going against the UN. Criticize Israel for going against health standards, but I think it's okay to have a cat working at a shawarma stand. That's all I'm saying. And people will talk about, Israel. People are like, Israel is so proud of being the only democracy in the Middle East. It even had an election 3 times in 1 year, and that is really impressive. That's a sad one. But also, I have to give credit to people that are joining this thing, because normally Jews will only come to an event if there's food. And that's, and it doesn't even matter what the event is. Jews will come to an event as long as there's food. You don't even have to agree with what the event. You could have an event called like the Merits of Yasser Arafat, and people will be like, "Will there be sushi? I should at least check that." And okay, maybe not. I actually just celebrated my 7th anniversary with my wife a few months ago. It's been a while. Quarantine. It was only 7. No, it's been 7 years and of being married. And it's the weird thing about being married, when you at the beginning, first of all, people throw their cynicism into marriage very early on. People just go up to you and they're just like, there's 3 rings: the wedding ring, the engagement ring, and the suffering. And you're like, why are you telling me this at my chuppah? This seems inappropriate. You're getting one of the Sheva brachos, like, you know, and then you have the advice. People love giving you marriage advice. People give you marriage advice very early on. People give you the normal advice, you know, never go to bed angry, communication is the most important thing. Then you get the weird cryptic advice you have no idea what to do with. People just go up to you and they're just like, psst, always order the chicken. Never get in a fight on a boat. You're like, what happened on a boat with chicken? And then you get the people give you the how's married life. When you during your Sheva brachos even, people go up to you and they say, how is married life? And you're like, what are you supposed to say? It's weird having a female roommate, lots of trips to Bed Bath & Beyond. You know, I didn't know I'd be doing this much toveling. You know, I feel like, toveling, by the way, for those of you that don't remember, is when you take your brand new dishes and you tuck in a tub of dirty water and it makes it spiritually cleaner. But basically, so they should ask you, how is married life, when you can answer the question. Like 2 or 3 years into getting married, when you can actually answer the question. People are like, how is married life? Well, I haven't been on time to any social function in 2 or 3 years. Also, I'm pretty sure my wife Shaitel head is going to murder me in my sleep. And that joke also is missing the live experience, because this is all the husbands not looking at their wives. It's terrifying. My wife's just sleeping softly. I'm just staring at these things, 2 of them, and these busts to the head. They have needles in their neck like the Frankenstein monster. I'm just like, you know what? I think I'm going to sleep in the sukkah tonight. It's a good thing I didn't take it down. And, it's my wife has, I didn't know about the Shaitels. I didn't know that Shaitels lose hair. I had no idea when I got married. I'll see some of the hair on the floor and say to my wife, I'm not sure this investment's paying off. And every time my wife sees some of my hair on the floor, she says, I'm not sure this investment's paying off. But also, not to be stereotypical, but like a lot of times, husbands are waiting for their wives to get ready for something. And that's often, you don't know how much time you're going to be waiting. And that's why I think when, a woman gets engaged, her parents often buy the guy a watch. And they say, listen, you got to keep track of something. Or they buy him a set of shas, and they say, listen, you might as well accomplish something while you're waiting. You hear about those stories of those rabbis who finish shas at red lights. You don't hear about the husbands who finish shas waiting for their wives to get ready in the seams of the doghouse. And it's like, it's really... But I also, I worked in Brooklyn with some Hasidim for a while, and I was the only one who wore a wedding ring. All these guys were married, but I was the only one who wore a wedding ring. And they said, people asked me, they said, why do you wear that? And I said, oh, it's like a yarmulke for your hand. Remember who's in charge and don't do anything stupid. You think that's a joke, but on my ring it says Dalif Nemi Atomed. But honestly, like, I think one of the biggest challenges of marriage has to be Friday afternoons. A lot of you are getting very scared because you're thinking, oh, like, it's Wednesday, okay, it's 2 days from now. Like, a lot of you are, again, you're like, look, stare at the camera, don't look at me. Because Friday afternoons, it's just so tense. It's just so tense. You get in arguments anywhere possible. It's like, I can't believe husbands are nodding, but they're not. Their wives can't see that. But like, they're like, your wife can see you through the camera. But like, you get in arguments, where possible. It's like, I can't believe we put the bags there and not there. And I'm like, if this was a Tuesday, we would not be yelling about this, okay? But this is why men buy flowers on Friday afternoon. This is their insurance policy. They know these plants are going to die in 5 days. You're going to make sure you don't die today, okay? We all know that Easter is a Christian holiday because no Jewish couples ever had a Good Friday. Anyways, is it any accident that davening is longer on Friday night? It was just Mincha and Mar. They're like, no, it's too quick. They're like, let's learn about Shabbos. And they're like, how many marriages a long Karabach davening might have saved? Like, honestly, like, and you have people think you're seeing your wife Ashes Chayil because you've gotten a fight earlier that some of you still do it. You get Ashes Chayil. I think they need a more updated modern version of Ashes Chayil, which goes something like this. I'm really sorry I didn't help out more. I didn't mean to go on Facebook. Can you please forgive me? I'm still not sure what I did wrong. Really want to get over this. I don't think you're actually fine. Can you please forgive me? Or this is an awkward meal. And, a lot of you were just thinking like, oh my gosh, this is so awkward. Like, you're like, please don't. Please, next topic. Well, like, come on, we've all, even before this whole thing, like, I don't know if people are having Shabbos, but you've all been to that, like, you know, Shabbos meal where, like, you're that guest and the couple, as the guest, and the couples that's hosting is, like, hashing it all out. And they're just like, you know, hey, baby, help around the house more. I wouldn't be so stressed out. And you're just like, my wife and I, we went to a marriage workshop a few years ago. Everything's fine, don't worry. We went to a marriage workshop. It was my wife and I and two other couples. One couple had been engaged for a week, and I guess things were really tough. And one couple had been married for 2 weeks, and we were the seasoned veterans, having been married about 2 years. And one of the exercises I remember they said was, write something down about your spouse that annoys you. I know you're all thinking, can't you just get in a fight later anyway? Like, and these other two couples were so adorable. They were just like, we can't think of anything. Do we just make stuff up? And my wife had her on the back. We need more paper over here. We go up to 50 or 100. How high do you want us to go? I realized also the secret of marriage is that if your wife asks you to get up and kill a bug, you get up, and a few minutes later, you flush the toilet, presuming that you got it, even if it crawled away on you. Honestly, shalom bias is connected to them. It's really the most important. But no, but honestly, I mentioned, you know, my wife did have, me and my wife, we had a baby a month ago. More accurately, my wife had a baby and I ordered the Uber for her. That was my huge contribution. And our daughter, and we had a baby girl, our daughter was 8 days late because she realized the world is 2020. She's like, what am I rushing into this world right now for? And it's, you know, we have like I said, we have a 2.5-year-old son. My son was born 4 days late because my wife's family is part of Chabad. And it's really, okay, that's when people are like, that's when I lose you. 35 minutes in, everyone's like, they can handle it. But it's really incredible. You know, thankfully, you know, my son and daughter were both born healthy. Everything. We were in the hospital for like 2 days. I came home, checked my mailbox, and there was already a bill for yeshiva tuition. It is amazing how quickly they did that. Too real for some of you. Sorry. But it's, you know, Lori mentioned, you know, she's friends with my mother-in-law. It's interesting because, you know, my son was born with a lot of hair. I was pretty jealous. And then he started losing his hair. And then he had his bris. And then my mother-in-law was talking about how he was getting a double chin. So I turned to my son and I said, you know, you're balding, you're circumcised, and relatives are talking about your weight. Welcome to the Jewish people. But it's, you know, it's really crazy. You know, it's unbelievable that, like, you know, I mentioned to you when he was 1 year old, I did a show. I flew with him without my wife, just with my son when he was a baby. And that was so crazy because it's such a different experience as a man flying with a baby and a woman flying with a baby. A woman flying with a baby, people are like, you better keep that baby quiet. A man flying with a baby, though, people are like, oh my God, sir, you're a hero. God bless you. We thank you for your service. They made an announcement. They said we want to have pre-boarding for elderly veterans and men who are clearly inept without their wives. And it's really, it was really okay. You guys remember flying. I'll leave you on this note here. Do you remember this? Do you know the song Ninth Man by Journey's A.B. Rottenberg? Do you know? Clap, but you can put a thumbs up if you know it. If you don't, then you'll get it. Don't worry. Yeah. It's a song Rabbi tried to teach us. So each and every. You can YouTube it later. But basically, it's about these kids on the Lower East Side of New York who don't really take their learning seriously. They kind of mess around, and no teacher is ever able to make it the entire year. They always have to quit in the middle. And one teacher finally makes it the entire year. And the climax of the song is the Lag BaOmer baseball game where they're playing this other team from Brooklyn. And the lyrics go, Lag BaOmer came around, things weren't looking right. One big kid from Bensonhurst on the other team had hit one out of sight. And just when things were looking up, the tide about to turn, our catcher went and broke his leg while sliding into third. It's a forfeit, cried the other team. We've only got 8 guys. No, we don't, a deep voice said, much to our surprise. Since I am the Rebbe, the fair thing is you see, let me be the ninth man on the team. Thank you very much. I'm a Levi, but I don't really sing or play instruments, so I'll be like a basically just greeter. Anyways, so the kid gets hurt, and the Rebbe steps in and says, I'm going to be the ninth guy. And he steps in, and he hits a home run, and they win the game. Obviously, because he's an adult playing with children. And the song does not address this at all as being weird. If the lyrics would have kept going, it would have been like, Rebbe then struck out every single kid because he's 25 years older. Of course, that's what he did. The other team was yelling, I don't think this is fair. But Rebbe kept on pitching the ball because he just didn't care. Also, the kid gets hurt and they keep playing. This is a huge problem. It's like our catcher when it broke his leg while sliding into third. It's a forfeit. Crowd the other team. You've only got 8 guys. Will someone please take me to the hospital? The kid no one evidently cared about. Who is this Rebbe that's like, I don't care that you're bleeding to death. I'm going to keep playing with 7th graders over here. And, this song talks about, how he hits a home run. He flew around the bases, probably had to hop over third over the kid who's in shock. Who's like, hey, you going to call Hatzalah eventually or what, man? And the song praises him for getting these kids to learn. Praises him. And I bet they honored him at the school dinner that year. I bet they were like, Rebbe, we want to present you with this award for Teacher of the Year. And sure, 6 kids died while on your watch, but we want to present you with this award. And presenting you with the award is the kid who only has 1 leg now. And that's what. That was a sad note to end on. Anyways, my name is Ellie Lebowitz. This was so much fun to do. I really appreciate those of you that laughed. I really appreciate those of you that didn't laugh and were thinking it. Also nice. My website is elliecomedy.com. Ellie Lebowitz. Thank you. I hope made this situation a little less tense. Thank you. And I'm cutting myself. I don't know why. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Ellie. That was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Ellie.
That was a lot of fun. This concludes our evening. Please, we will be sending out an email to tell you the link for our online journal, which should be up by, maybe up now for all I know, but I don't know, but we will send the link for the online journal. So please take a look at that. There are some lovely words in it. Really a lovely outpouring of support for the Mikvah Emunah Society, and it's really very nice, and I hope everybody will take a look at it. We'll send the link tomorrow, I promise. Well, be neder, I promise. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for supporting the Mikvah Emunah Society and their important work in the community. We wish you all a Shana Tova Umituka, a year filled with joy, laughter, Hoda'ah, and Bracha. Good night, everybody.